Everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's Matt here from Chill TCG. Today we're going to be taking a look at the top 16 deck lists from our Chill Series number 28 special Yellhorn event, which wrapped up this past Wednesday. It was a great tournament, absolutely phenomenal. We had 250 Battle Styles packs in the prize pool with a gold quick ball, which was given to the first place winner. Shout out to Joshua Southerland, who ended up getting the win. It was a phenomenal tournament. If we just take a look here, guys, I mean, literally 518 players this week on a Wednesday night for Chill Series 28. It means a lot to me. It was an absolutely fantastic outing. So very, very excited to get into the video. And we're going to go ahead and take a look at each of these top 16 decks. There's a lot of variants, a lot of really different decks here. So this is going to be a phenomenal video to watch for people, you know, kind of looking to find new viable decks that they can be running right now in the format. This format's actually phenomenal, especially as a content creator and as somebody who runs tournaments, because there's so many just sort of different decks that have the a good possibility of winning these tournaments, or at least placing well within the top 16. So we're going to get immediately right into it. At number 16, we have the Finno? The Zero Fen Zero, I guess is how you pronounce it. He was actually playing Centiskorch VMAX. I don't know where he's from. But yeah, I mean, he went 11-4, bubbled right into the top 16. Let's take a look at his list and see if there's anything surprising here. Okay. So it's Centiskorch VMAX. Now, immediately, I just kind of want to point out that this is not the Scoop Up Net Jirachi Engine. This is, of course, using Pokegears to find those supporters that are in your deck. Only 6 supporters, so there's 4 Welders, 2 Boss's Orders. 1 out of your 10, 1 out of 10 cards in your deck is, of course, a supporter card, so it's going to be a little bit hard to find those, which is why we're running 4 Pokegears to kind of help that a little bit. But we do have 2 Crobats and 2 Dedenes and 2 Eldegosses to consistently still be able to use our supporter cards throughout the game. So I kind of like this. Surprising, at first glance it might not seem that consistent. The Scoop Up Net Jirachi Engine version, might be a little bit more consistent, but, we have the 3-3 Centiskorch lineup, 2 Volcanions. That's going to be your best starting option there. Volcanion, you would like to go first. And of course, we do have 1 Heatran GX, which is going to be a really good option as sort of our GX attacker. Always a good place for Heatran here. Heatran is very good in Centiskorch, in my opinion, because with Centiskorch, you typically like to build up a lot of energies onto your Centiskorch VMAX. And then if you're in jeopardy of getting KO'd, you can switch into that Heatran, move the energies to it, and then have that one last really big, hard-hitting KO. With the, of course, the Hotburn GX. So I think that Heatran's a very good card in Centiskorch. And we also see the, sorry, my hair is ridiculous. We also see the Oricorio GX. Oricorio GX is a bit interesting. It's another draw support option. I don't know how I feel about it. Typically in this deck, you're only going to get KO'd once or twice. Twice, 2 or 3 times in a game. So you're never going to be able to use that Oricorio more than like 2 or 3, more than twice, realistically. But it's still very interesting for sure to have in the deck. And I guess it can be a really decent option for not sort of dead drawing and bricking at certain points in the game, which Centiskorch typically seems to do, and most Welder decks seem to do as well. We have a Fion in here, which is going to be really good. Kind of just that extra gusting option, right? It kind of works as a escape rope. Right, but this deck isn't running Escape Rope, it's just running Force Switch, but he is running the Fion. And we have a Tapu Fini in here as well, which of course, if you're, I think it's if your opponent is an Ultra Beast, is that how this card works? We're going to check it out. Yeah, so if your opponent is an Ultra Beast, this attack is only 1 colorless energy, so it's going to be a really good option against Blacephalon to kind of go into Tapu Fini, 1 fire energy, and just start one-hit KOing stuff. So it's definitely going to be a pretty decent option. I do like it a lot. But overall, kind of an interesting inclusion into the deck. The 4 Welder, 2 Boss, like I said, nothing crazy there. 4 Quick Balls, 4 Comms, that's going to be your Pokemon Search here, Gears, 4 Switch, 2 Reset Stamps in the deck. Again, to kind of give this deck a little bit more comeback potential, because it does kind of like to do that, right? It likes to kind of take a couple big hit KOs, and sometimes in the middle game, you can kind of, things can kind of die down a bit for Centiskorch, especially after your first one gets KO'd. So I think that Stamp's really good, just so that it can kind of kind of stall your opponent for a turn or two, middle late game, for you to kind of come back here. And we have 1 Ordinary Rod, kind of interesting, kind of get those fire energies back, maybe get some of these Pokemon back in case you have to discard them early in the game or they get knocked out. 1 Big Charm is interesting. I mean, I think a Big Charm on a VMAX right now is always really good. I think that 320 is a little bit sketchy just with Urshifu's running around, and overall, a lot of things that can 2-hit KO VMAX Pokemon, so I do like the Big Charm, might get you out of range there, and then the 3 Hearts, 13 Fire Energies. Now, this was our highest placing Centiskorch of the tournament, but again, not a really traditional Centiskorch list. We have seen greens in the past few weeks. Of course, the Scoop Up Net Jirachi Engine was very popular last format, but I guess Gears, it's a viable way to play it, so very interesting to see it this high up in the tournament, so big shout out to the Fen I guess is how I'm just going to call him the Fen. Next up, we have Sagaru? I'm not sure exactly how to say that either, but he is from Peru, 11-4, and he was playing E-Turn VMAX. This was our highest placing E-Turn VMAX of the tournament. So you can see that things like Centiskorch VMAX and E-Turn, which were absolutely phenomenal last format, haven't really been performing that well in this new format. But this is sort of what people are playing now with E-Turn, and I kind of just agree with it. We've got the 4 E-Turn, 3 E-Turn VMAX, 4 Crobats. Sometimes people are running a 4-4 lineup. I don't know if it really matters too much. We have 4 Zigzagoons, a Hoopa, Sableye V, and a Yveltal. Now, the Sableye V before used to be pretty good for like a 2 energies pick up a KO, but now it's mainly used in here for the load search attack, which is going to help us take a supporter card or 2 trainer cards out of our discard pile and put them back into our hand. And mainly we're going to be doing that for either, I guess, Boss or Phoebe, but for the most part, Phoebe is a card that's really important in E-Turn because it does get walled heavily by things like the new Decidueye with the Big Charm and the Malilana engine. But also Luke Metal, and we saw Luke Metal have a lot of success in this tournament, but it's been really consistent in the last few weeks, and I do think that Phoebe is almost necessary in E-Turn VMAX to have that matchup be winnable. One Phoebe might not always be enough, especially for Decidueye, so that Sableye V is going to help get that Phoebe out of the discard pile, and that's kind of the reason both of those cards are in the deck. Everything else here, pretty standard. 4 Quick Ball, 3 Calm, 3 Great Ball. We are actually running Scoop Up Nets. Now, most E-Turns typically are running Hammers, so this is something a little bit out of the ordinary. 4 Scoop Up Nets, it works well with the Goons, kind of, I guess, eliminate the possibility of a lot of those tag team Pokemon running Big Charms now. I know Greenzard likes to kind of buff up the HP of Reshizard, and Mewtwo decks typically run, of course, the Big Charms as well. So I think that the Scoop Up Net is kind of cool. It's actually somewhat viable, but overall, I don't know. It also kind of works as Zigzagoon being a pivot. Same with the Yveltal, or not Yveltal, Hoopa. So, right, that's just like another option to utilize those cards, but interesting nonetheless. I don't know if it's better than Hammers. Hammer seems almost needed if you're going to win that ADP matchup, but you know what? It is what it is. 4 3 switch cards, 2 reset stamps in the deck, and 1 Pal Pad on top of the Sableye. Just another way to get those supporter cards back out of your discard pile. The Pal Pad shuffles them into your deck, however. So another good option. You can see there's like kind of a double fail-safe. This deck definitely does not want to lose to Luke Metal. However, the matchup can still be pretty messy overall. One Chaotic Swell, probably the best stadium you can running. Some people run Power Plant. I don't know about it. 7 Dark Energies and then 3 Weak Guards. I think 10 Energies is pretty much standard and almost needed in E-Turn for consistency reasons. And I think that the Weak Guards are just sort of what people are running in E-Turn right now to help with that Urshifu matchup. There's so many Urshifus running around. Rapid Strike does, even though it isn't one-hit KOing with weakness a lot of times, it still has a really good matchup, and Weakness Guard Energies are really, really important. So I think that's a big reason why it's in the deck. Also, it kind of works because E-Turn has a colorless energy and its attack cost. But here it is. This is our highest placing E-Turn of the tournament. So interesting nonetheless. If you guys are still E-Turn fanatics, if you like to play E-Turnitas VMAX, maybe taking a look at this list might help out for sure. But all right, we're going to move on. Next up, we've got Daigolo. Daigolo? I don't. These names are so hard to pronounce, I swear. This dude is from France. Kind of a Chill Series regular. I remember seeing his name a lot. He was playing Rapid Strike Urshifu. We did have 3 of them in the top 16. One of the most common decks in top 16. I think it was the most common deck. One of the best decks in the format right now overall. I mean, it's super consistent. It's been in the finals like the last 3 weeks. And this is kind of an interesting version of it. Most people are running the Jirachi Team Up Jirachi Scoop Up Net version. This deck doesn't, so that's something to keep in mind. If you're not really a fan of Scoop Up Net Jirachi Engine, maybe this is a kind of a viable option when you're running Urshifu. But we have 2 Amazing Rare Jirachis, which does kind of a similar effect, right? Being able to look at the top few cards of your deck and pick one. The good thing is here is you can just retreat out manually. You're never going to be put to sleep, and it does have a retreat cost of 1. So an interesting option there. 2 Dedenes, 1 Crobat, pretty standard. We have a Hoopa in the list as well, which I kind of find interesting. But can actually be a pretty decent single prize attacking option in most decks with that colorless energy. I think it's really good. It's underrated. And in a deck like this, which, typically, well, it's kind of interesting because Urshifu VMAX can just attack for 1 energy anyway pretty consistently. But you know what? Maybe there's that Hoopa is that extra option. I'm not sure. Maybe it was pretty useful for him. 1 Eldegoss, yep. 1 Jirachi Gx to eliminate your Psychic type weakness. There are a lot of Mewtwo decks running around, so I like that. 1 Mew in the mirror matchup, as well as Pikarom, Cramorant, keeping your Dedenne safe as well. And then we have the Mimikyu in here, and the Mimikyu is actually interesting because it does pretty much auto-win a lot of Mewtwo matchups, right? So we got to keep that in mind, except a lot of Mewtwo's now are running Stealthy Hood to counter Mimikyu, because Mimikyu is a really good counter for Mewtwo. So somewhat useful. So I guess you're kind of putting that pressure on Mewtwo decks if they're not teching for the Mimikyu with Stealthy Hood. Then Mimikyu can, of course, definitely guarantee that you have a very good chance of winning that matchup. 4 Research, 3 Marnie, 3 Boss, all good stuff there. 4 Hammers. So this is actually Urshifu Hammers. I'm just kind of going in order. I didn't even see that. But yeah. Urshifu Hammers, it's definitely interesting. I know that it can help with the ADP matchup a lot, which is a matchup that Urshifu sometimes can struggle with. But, overall, I think that Crushing Hammers, I mean, it has the chance to make any deck better, I guess, is the point, right? So I guess maybe running 4 Hammers, maybe Hammers eat Urshifu is kind of the way to go. I have no idea. But interesting nonetheless to see 4 Hammers in here. 4 Quick Balls, 4 Comms, 3 Switch Cards only. But we do have 1 Escape Rope and 3 Air Balloons. A couple 1-ofs in here. We have a Great Catcher, Tool Scrapper, and Fan of Waves. The Tool Scrapper is kind of in here, again, to kind of counter those big charms, which a lot of times people are putting on VMAX Pokemon to kind of make it a little bit harder for Urshifu to KO them. But at the same time, the Stealthy Hood's on Mewtwo, right? It's just another kind of failsafe. With the Mimikyu, the Jirachi Gx, the Tool Scrapper, you're definitely kind of guaranteeing that you have a good chance of winning those Mewtwo matchups, which I think is smart when you're playing this deck. And on top of the 4 Hammers, we have 1 Fan of Waves, just kind of another option as well. To discard energy, so this deck is going all in on the energy disruption, which I find to be interesting. 2 Dojos, again, Dojo is very necessary as well, I believe, in Urshifu. From the beginning, I always thought Dojo was probably the smart stadium card to be running in the deck, so I do like Dojo. And then we have 5 Fighting Energies for Rapid Strike Energies. This 5-4 energy count is what everyone's kind of been running in Urshifu, and I think that's pretty much okay, because a lot of times you just attack with 1 energy and you don't need to run that many in the deck. So I do understand running 9 energies in the deck. Here it is. This is again kind of an alternate way to play Urshifu VMAX. We're going to see sort of these alternate kind of builds of these more mainstream archetypes a little bit farther down on the top 16 list, because typically they're a little bit outside of the norm. Less people are playing them, so it's less likely that they'll do well in the tournament. But interesting nonetheless to see Hammers Urshifu up here, which is it's just cool to me. But I don't know. Maybe it's gross. Who knows? Shout out to Daigolo, though. 13th, we have Waffleton from the U.S. He was playing ADP Zacian. This was our highest placing ADP, actually. We didn't have any that made it into top 8. 13th in the tournament, 11-4. Let's take a look at his ADP list. Could be Hammers, could be max consistency. Yep, so it is just ADP Hammers here. Nothing, literally nothing out of the ordinary. This is sort of the most super standard ADP Hammer list that you could be running. I think that, I'm not going to spend too much time on it. I think that everything here has a purpose. I don't know if 4 Zacians is entirely needed, but I think in a best-of-1 format, it might be more better. It might be better than just, like, to run 4 Zacians, then maybe cut a Zacian out, and then maybe add, like, a Mawile or, like, something different in the deck. But I do think 3 Dedenne is extremely good in ADP, makes it super fast-paced, and makes it much more consistent overall. But one thing I do want to note here is that when you're playing 4 Hammers, you have to cut a little bit of consistency cards in the deck. So we're running 4 Boss, 4 Research. We're not running any Barney or any other kind of draw supporter. But the 3 Dedenne kind of covers that with the 1 Crobat, Eldegoss as well. Yeah, I mean, 3 Energy Switch, 2 Escape Rope, 2 Switch, 2 Air Balloons, 1 Rusted Sword, Chaotic Swell, Great Catcher as well, and 2 Spinners. When we're running max consistency ADP, you might see 4 E-Switches, 3 Spinners, and you might also see perhaps maybe another spot in the deck for another kind of Pokemon to tech in there. But for ADP Hammers, this is exactly probably what you're going to be looking for, and I think that it has a lot of synergy. One of the best decks in the format, to be honest with you. I was a little bit surprised that it didn't get higher placed in the tournament, but ADP, sometimes it just doesn't do that well. It's overall kind of one of the less consistent archetypes in terms of its placements. Like, and I mean that in a generous way. Like, of course, ADP is typically the most played deck, so for that reason, it's always consistently going to be placing high. But the deck list itself isn't actually super consistent, especially when you're running 4 Hammers. But has a lot of potential and interesting nonetheless to see it make top 16. Only one of them though. But anyway, big shout out to Waffleton, man. Waffleton, the ADP. Okay, next up we have Yakiller 8 playing Mad Party. So I lied earlier. There is actually 3 Mad Parties in top 16 as well as 3 Urshifus. Mad Party is extremely good. Let's take a look at Yakiller's list. The only problem with Mad Party, in my opinion, and this was one of the more played decks in the tournament, the only problem with Mad Party is, like, sometimes if you don't get a good, like, 1 or 2 first turns, you really have a bad chance of winning winning the game realistically, and it can struggle with E-turn, it can struggle with ADP, but for that reason, I think that Mad Party probably is never going to be tier 1, or at least it's not right now, but it's a very strong next tier down contender. I think that it's probably the best single prize attacking archetype in the game right now. I think that having Poltergeist as a psychic attacker as well is phenomenal. I just think that overall, it's a really good list. Like, Mad Party's super, super good. And just to talk about the deck list here, there's nothing too out of the ordinary with it. Like, it's honestly pretty standard. I think that the Mew is very necessary right now. I like the 2 Boss, 2 Great Catcher. I like 1 Exile. I like the 1 Escape Rope as well in the deck with the 2 Air Balloons. So it's just interesting for me personally. So I might be running U-turn board instead of Air Balloon. I'm not 100% sure, but 7 energies, the 4 Twin, 3 Acceleration. We got the 4 Great Balls, 4 Quick Balls, 4 Level Balls, 1 Evolution Incense in here, 1 Pal Pad as well, and 1 Ordinary Wide. Yeah, I mean, everything in here is pretty standard. But yeah, I think Mad Party is really good. It has a really good spot in the meta, like a really good position, but I just don't think that it's as consistent as it needs to be considered a very top-tier deck. But I think it's up there. I think it's really high up there. And no surprise. And I think that it was really heavily played in this tournament as well, so kind of makes sense that we see 3 of them here in top 16, but definitely interesting nonetheless. So here it is. We're going to be taking a look at a few more of them, and they're probably not going to be much different than the other ones that we take a look at, but we'll make sure. We'll make sure when we take a look. Number 11, we have Kant from Japan. Now, Kant is on a tear right now, playing Green's Reshizard. It's a list that he's very confident with, a list that he's very proficient with, and it's a very cool deck list here. We have 2 Green's Reshizards in top 16 as well, so again, kind of emerging into this meta as one of the real contenders. We might make a video on this soon as well, but we do have another one a little bit farther up in the placements. But for now, just taking a look at this, we have only 4 Volcanion and 3 Reshizard. Those are the only Pokemon in the deck. Kind of nice because no matter what, you might mulligan a few times to start off the game, but no matter what, your starting Pokemon is going to be pretty ideal. We have 4 Greens, 4 Welder, 3 Boss, 2 Cynthia Kalen, 1 Malalana, with 4 Pokegears and 3 Tag Calls. So a lot of different ways to find these supporters. The supporters are going to be very, very important, whether it's Greens or Welder on your first turn. You want to go second for sure with this deck. Yeah, a lot of one-ofs in here, a lot of different routes that you can go. I think that the Great Potion is phenomenal. I think it really helps in that Urshifu matchup, as well as, having the 2 Big Charms and the 4 Heat Energies in the deck. This is really important, right, because, with the Big Charm, a couple Heat Energies on there, Reshiram Charizard is pretty much a VMAX Pokemon in terms of HP count, and then we have Great Potion as well, just to heal some damage, which actually gets us out of range of getting KO'd by Urshifu, 2-hit KO'd by Urshifu, which is phenomenally good. It also has a good Victini matchup, because of course Victini isn't hitting Reshizard for that much. Sometimes it's like a 3-hit KO or more, right? So absolutely insane. And I like the Tag Call engine as well with the Cynthia Kalen, and the Malalana is actually really clutch as well in that Urshifu and Victini matchups, as well as some other matchups too. But everything else in here, it's just interesting. Like, you know what I mean? It's a very interesting deck. It's kind of hard to play. Like, Green's decks are always difficult to play because, it's less kind of relying on the cards that you draw and making the decision based off what your hand is. A lot of times, they kind of put that luck in your hands, right? And when you play Greens, you got to grab 2 cards that are probably going to be your best decision. So it definitely requires the pilot playing the deck to be proficient in knowing what the matchup is and what his best route is. So it sometimes can feel inconsistent, but for the most part, it's just because maybe you're not making the right decisions. I know when I play this deck and I play Greens decks, I'm not as comfortable and I'm not as experienced with them, that it's difficult for me to actually feel like the deck's consistent, but that's mainly just because I don't know how to play Greens decks as well as some other people might. I like the 2 Power Plants in the deck as well. It's just kind of funny to me. 1 Crystal, 1 Spinner, 1 Hearth, and you typically would see more of those. 2 Stamps as well as here, 1 Doll, 1 Scoop Up Net, 1 Tool Scrapper. So just a lot of 1-ups in the deck that are really interesting. The Tag Switch is also pretty interesting as well. And the Great Catcher. So I like it. This is Green's art, guys. It's a lot better than people think it is right now. And I think that in terms of Welder archetypes, this could be up there in the top 2 or 3 right now. So definitely very interesting for sure. Welder's in an interesting position because Welder decks are a split between 5 or 6 different decks, and they're kind of all vying for that higher spot, which is interesting. But in this tournament, Greenzard was kind of the one that came up on top, so that's interesting to keep in mind. Next up at number 10, we have a pack of alpacas, which is an interesting name there, from New Zealand. He was playing Welder, Mewtwo, Victini. And this is another kind of Welder archetype that was really popular, for a little while there, and I think it's a really good deck. So realistically, it's just Welder, Mewtwo, But we have a 3-3 Victini lineup thrown in here. I've said it before, having Fire-type attackers and Psychic-type attackers are phenomenal right now in the format. They both hit for weakness on some really good decks, and it's just a really good combination. Welder Mewtwo is phenomenal, right? You have a lot of crazy damage output potential, really kind of that burst of potential of just bursting off and just absolutely popping off early in the game. But on top of that, I think that Victini goes really well in the deck because not only is Spreading Flames really good, so it could be a really good starting option early in the game because you are running multiple Dedenes, Quick Balls, so you can discard a lot of energies, and then Spreading Flames as your first attack with Victini V. But Victini VMAX is a very energy-efficient attacker, and it's very good in VMAX matchups. So honestly, when you're playing some decks, like if you're playing against Rapid Strike Urshifu, like Mewtwo Mew is a Psychic-type Pokemon. Sometimes it's more worth it to just go all in with Victini because Victini has a very good Urshifu matchup, right? So just kind of interesting for sure. And when you're playing ADP, Victini can struggle against ADP sort of. So I think for that reason, that's why the Welder Mewtwo stuff really helps with this. And I like the Cramorant in here as well. But in terms of the Fire-type attackers, we've got Charizard. We have a Flareon Gx, which I find to be pretty interesting as well. And we have a Charizard Gx. I'm not even sure what Flareon Gx does. I'm just going to click on it real quick because I'm not too familiar with it. Heat stage, so you may attach up to 3 fire energies from your hand to your Pokemon, anybody that you like. So it could be a very good starting option as well. Kind of first turn attack to get off with Mewtwo and just accelerate a lot of energies on that first turn or two. What's the GX attack do? 20 damage for each fire energy card in your discard pile. So it actually could be a pretty decent late game option. But probably not anything too crazy. Bright Flame 190, discard 2 energies from this Pokemon. Probably not great. But that first attack is actually really cool. It's another great starting option. So this deck really kind of probably likes to... It kind of likes to set up early game, I would think, with either the Flare starter here or the Flareon GX attack. And then you have Charizard GX here and Reshiram Charizard GX to do some big damage with Mewtwo to copy that's attacks, or we can just attach to our Victinis and set that up for the game. But everything else here, pretty normal. We're running the Pokegear engine. We have 4 Boss, 4 Welder, 1 Research, 4 Calm, 4 Quick Ball, 2 Cherish Balls. So overall, seems like a really consistent list and a list that actually could be very, very good. But I just think that overall, you're running such a high count of Pokemon. The deck list definitely can seem a bit inconsistent at times, and I do understand that. But it definitely has a lot of potential as well, and in theory, a really good matchup spread. So I like that deck a lot. Okay, so we got Thomas O at 9th from, what is this, Chile? He was playing Rapid Strike Urshifu as well. Let's see what his Rapid Strike Urshifu list was. And we'll see how it differs. So this is the Scoop Up Net Jirachi Engine. This is kind of the engine that most people are playing in the deck. Kind of makes it a little bit more consistent. And of course, you have access to Mewtwo in there instead of Eldegoss, which is honestly better in some scenarios because it's more reusable. But everything else in here is pretty typically played. I think that the one Phoebe is really necessary. It helps a lot with the, of course, Luke Metal matchup, and we have Mewtwo 4 Scoop Up Nets to kind of shuffle that back into our hand eventually, or on the top of our deck, and then just kind of keep Phoebeing, which can be really good in that matchup. Can kind of give you the possibility of winning. Also in Desi as well, can be really good. 4 Research, 4 Marnie, 3 Boss. But we do have a great catcher in here, so I like all that. Again, he's running 8 energies actually instead of 9, so he's actually cut an energy from the list, which I find interesting. The 2 JoJos, Ordinary Rod in here as well, which is pretty interesting. And then we actually have 1 Air Balloon and 1 Tool Jammer, so the Tool Jammer is pretty interesting for me as well. Kind of gets rid of that, because we saw Tool Scrapper in the last Rapid Strike Urshifu deck list, and they kind of serve similar purposes, except, he's just going with running Tool Jammer instead of Tool Scrapper. They both kind of disrupt tool cards on our opponent's Pokemon. It's just kind of another way to play it. Might be the better option, I honestly don't know, but interesting nonetheless. So here we go. This is the second highest placing Rapid Strike Urshifu deck in the tournament, so pretty funny to see. This one's a little bit more normal than the last one, but it is what it is, right? It is what it is. So big shout out to Thomas, man. Big shout out to Thomas. Okay, so next up we have Rogerio Bombardelli, who got 8th in the tournament. He did make it into top 8 here. And if you were watching live on the live stream on Zach Lasage's YouTube channel when we were casting the top cut matches, he did match up against Joshua Southerland there in the first round. One of the most entertaining games I think I've ever seen. He was playing Green's Dragapult. Green's Dragapult, which is a very interesting matchup here. This deck is really funny. It's really funny because at first glance, again, just like Reshiram and Charizard, it can seem very inconsistent. The skill gap for this deck is definitely pretty high. But overall, I think that the one Gengar Mimikyu really increases your odds in a lot of matchups, right? I think that Gengar Mimikyu is extremely good in ADP. It can be really good in a lot of different decks, but I think that overall Dragapult is a really good option in the deck. You also kind of auto-win Mad Party, so that's something to keep in mind as well when you're playing Dragapult. Mad Parties become increasingly more popular. Yeah, I mean, you got the Omastar in here, which is fossil bind, so as long as you have less Pokemon on your board than your opponent cannot play item cards from their hand. Again, a really good synergy with the Gengar Mimikyu, which likes to use the Poltergeist attack, which does more damage for each trainer card in your opponent's hand. So that's going to be important, right? So if our opponent doesn't have the ability to play item cards, they're just going to kind of stack up in your hand, and then Poltergeist does even more damage. So I like the synergy there. A lot of one-ups in the deck that you'll see: one Yellgrunt, one Phoebe, one Jessie James. And those are all kind of tech supporter cards, which are really useful in some scenarios. Of course, we know Phoebe's really useful. The Yellgrunt can be extremely good in some scenarios, especially in those like E-turn matchups or the ADP matchups. Kind of going along with the four hammers makes that matchup a little bit more winnable for Dragapult. I'm not saying it's favored, but at least gives you the chance. And then Jessie James can be really good in that little kind of mid to late game option. After we, of course, just if our opponent's like dead drawing and we just have a Dragapult and we're just kind of swinging away, Jessie James can really kind of hurt, right? And especially with those two reset stamps, we can stamp them to 1 or 2 Jessie James, and then they go down to no cards in their hand, which kind of relies on them just drawing off the top deck. Can be a really powerful card as well. 4 gears, again, we're gonna have to find one of our 4 greens, 4 research, 2 boss. Actually, kind of quite a bit of supporter cards in the deck, so 4 gears kind of makes sense. 2 Evo Incense and only 1 Quick Ball. That's literally the only way we're searching for Pokemon. Again, when you're starting Pokemon, the only options in this deck are going to be Gengar, Mimikyu, and Dragapult V. So for the most part, you can guarantee that you're getting one of those Pokemon out. So you typically don't actually have to search too much for your other Pokemon. And with greens, right, you can kind of just find that Evolution Incense or that Quick Ball if you need it. So that's kind of another reason why we're not running a whole lot of them. 2 spinners to guarantee or get it a little bit more likely to find our energies. That's another big problem with Dragapult. If you don't get an attachment turn 1, you're going to be struggling. 1 switch card, just 1 switch. 1 identified fossil. That's how we're going to be getting into the Omastar with 1 rare candy. Excuse me. 1 fan of waves on top of the 4 hammers and 1 Yellgrunt, so plenty of energy removal in the deck. 1 escape rope, just again like a kind of a tech option, a gusting option. 1 tool scrapper, 1 vitality band, which is interesting. So puts Dragapult up to, of course, the 140 damage, which does 2 hit KO ADP, which is interesting. But on top of that, Vitality Band can be really good on Gengar Mimikyu as well. So if you're hitting for 250 or 300, that 1 extra damage can be the difference between you getting the KO or not getting the KO. And then XP share is going to be the way that we're conserving our basic psychic energy. So we can attach that to our second bench Dragapult. When our first one gets knocked out, we can kind of make it more consistently able to attack again with the second Dragapult after the first one gets KO'd. Because, again, we're just manually attaching, right? So sometimes if you miss an attachment, EXP share is going to be the difference. And I like the 3 power plants as well. Helps a lot in the Mewtwo matchups and helps in ADP as well. But a lot of people are running Swell. But I think 3 power plants is probably interesting in the deck. Kind of gives it that more disruption. And this deck is really disruptive, right? With all the energy removal, with the power plants, with the tool scrapper. It's just the Jessie James, Gengar Mimikyu item lock. It can be a really annoying deck to play against if it draws well. Sometimes it doesn't draw very well. I'm always surprised to see this deck do so well in the tournaments, but you know what? It's been up here before, and it really is what it is, right? So you know what? Big shout out to Rogerio for getting top 8 with Green's Dragapult. I love seeing Dragapult do well. I honestly think that it should see more play, but it doesn't, unfortunately. Next up, we have Angel Aranabar, a Chill Series champion, a regular to Chill Series events. I think Rogerio is a champion as well, so keep that in mind. But Angel, he got 7th from Peru. He was also playing Mad Party, so let's take a look at his Mad Party list and see if it's any different. Okay, so this is a little bit different. We are running, of course, a Roxy in here, which is just another way to discard. What is it exactly? I know you discard 2 Pokemon that aren't Pokemon GX or EX cards, and then you draw 3 cards for each card you discarded in this way. It actually seems really, really good, to be 100% honest with you, in Mad Party, because we do like to discard those Mad Party Pokemon to do more damage, right? That's what the Mad Party attack does, and we also draw cards while we're doing it, so it can be a really good option as well. Giovanni's Exile is another card that does a similar thing, except we can discard GX and EX Pokemon. So very interesting for sure. Everything else in here, other than that, pretty standard. We do have the 2 Great Catcher, 2 Boss, 2 Air Balloon. We have the 2 Comms, as well as so we have 14 Pokemon search cards in the deck. That's really what this deck focuses on for sure. And then we have 1 Pal Pad as well to get these supporters back at the discard pile. I like it. I like the Oranguru as well in Mad Party. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting for sure. It's very interesting. Mad Party is very, very good. We had a lot of people playing it. And I think that it's a very good option right now. It's very well positioned, and people just aren't really prepping for it that much. And when Mad Party seems to do really good, people kind of play more E-turn, play more ADP, which I don't know if that's typically the best option, to be 100% honest with you. But I think that if Mad Party remains to be one of the most played decks and one of the best played decks, Welder decks can actually run Stoutland, which is a very good matchup for Mad Party. And if you're playing Mewtwo decks, like I think Mewtwo Rillaboom does do really well with Mad Party, because of course you can use the Beast Game, or you can use is it Beast Game? You can Buzzwole and Pheromosa GX Tag Team has that attack, which does 40 damage, but you take an extra prize card. So that can be extremely good in this matchup as well. So I just think that there's a lot of counters for Mad Party. People just don't typically play them, which is interesting, because they don't really take this list that seriously. But I think that Mad Party is phenomenal, and people probably should take it more seriously. So shout out to Angel Aranabar. I like the list. Next up, Zekro. We have Zekro here at 6th. He was our second highest placing Luke Medal. We did have one win the tournament. Let's take a look at his Luke Medal list and see what he's rocking with. 30 minutes into the video, so we're gonna have to pick it up. Okay, so this is standard Luke Medal, except we are running a 1-1 Bronzong line. I do not recommend doing this personally. This is mainly just because if you KO Lucario Melmetal GX, typically when you're playing a Luke Medal, you have to go through this tag team, which is really annoying because it can be really bulky. But then you also have to go through either another Zacian or another Zamazenta, right? So that's 3 Pokemon that are a lot harder to KO than a single prize Pokemon like Bronzong. So that's why I don't really necessarily like having a one prizer down on your bench. It's just going to make it that much easier for them to just kind of boss up a single prizer and KO it, because the damage reduction doesn't really matter when you only have 110 HP, right? So kind of defensively, the whole game plan of Luke Medal kind of falls through the cracks when you're running a 1-1 Bronzong lineup, even though it can make the deck much more consistent with, of course, being able to attack more consistently, right? So it's a bit of a more aggressive version of Luke Medal, but overall, I think that it doesn't really fit too well with the overall kind of style of Luke Medal. That's why I don't really recommend Bronze or Bronzong. The prizing just doesn't really work out, and I wouldn't recommend running a single prizer in Luke Medal. But anyway, I'm not trying to hate on Zekro's list. He did very well in the tournament. That's just my opinion. I do like Zekro a lot, and I think Bronzong's a really cool card. So, maybe what I'm saying isn't that big of an issue, but personally, that's kind of my thoughts. The 2 Malolana, 2 Guzmahala, 2 Cynthia Caitlyn, 3 tag calls. Everything in here is pretty standard. I like the one Swell, one Power Plant as well. I know some people are playing one or the other. I like running both here. We have 3 Metal Goggles. We do not have Cape of Toughness, which is another interesting thing. A lot of people are playing capes as well as goggles in the list, but I do like the Tool Scrapper as well. But yeah, I don't have too much else to say about this. No research in the deck, 4 Marnie, 3 Boss, which I think is also kind of interesting. So I think that this list can be kind of taken seriously, very seriously in some ways. I like the 4 Marnie, I like the Power Plant and Swell. I think that it's really close to being a really premier kind of Luke Medal list. It didn't win. We did have a different Luke Medal list win the tournament, and we'll take a look at that list in a bit, Josh's list. But you know what? Big shout out to Zekro. I do like Luke Medal. I do like your list, and I think it's pretty cool to see it this high up. Next up, we have Simone Trotier Lacasse. I'm terrible at pronouncing names, so I apologize. He's from Canada, and he was playing Mad Party. He got 5th. This was our highest placing Mad Party in the tournament. So again, Mad Party did do very well. And this is almost exactly the list that we saw in that first Mad Party. And again, I'm not going to spend too much time on it. Shout out to Simone. He did fantastic with Mad Party. Mad Party is a very good deck. I just don't know, like I said, if it's as consistent enough to be considered like a super top tier deck. But if it keeps doing really, really well, more people are going to play it. And I'm not surprised if we see it make it to finals or win a Chill Series at some point, right? So I'm definitely interested to see exactly how Mad Party evolves in the next month or so. But yeah, there it is. This was the highest placing Mad Party list, so if you are a Mad Party player, this might be the one to take a look at. Simone's a fantastic player, so that's another thing to keep in mind. That might have, contributed to him being so high up in the tournament. But overall, I think his list is definitely really, really good. All right. Getting on to the top 4. Now we have the immortal phenomenon known as Quacking in Space. I don't know who this is. I think it might be Bart, to be honest with you. But kind of a long name there. What are we going to do? He did make top 4, and guess what? It's Pikarom. It's Pikachu Zekrom. It's never going to go away, guys. I mean, it's really good. People don't play it as much because it doesn't have that great of a matchup spread anymore in this format, but it is still an absolutely phenomenal deck. And you do run 2 Mewtwo, so as long as you don't start with a Psychic-type Pokemon, your Urshifu matchup might actually be pretty darn good. We don't have a Stealthy Hood in here, so Mimikyu does kind of auto-win the matchup, personally, in my opinion. But I like the 4 Hammers. I like, the Big Charm, the 2 Air Balloons, 4 Bolton in the list. I know a lot of people run 4 Bolton or 3. 3's kind of the typical standard, but I think 4 isn't that bad. Makes the deck, it makes the starting option for this deck a little bit more consistent. because again, you do want to start off and electrify with Bolton. Typically, if you're going second, if not, you might just attach to Peak. But overall, I like the 2 stamps in here. Everything is pretty much normal. I don't even know why I'm explaining this. I've talked about Peak around like 100 times, especially in the last format. But you know what? Bart, he did get top 4. Unless it's not Bart, I honestly don't know. Quacking in space is what we'll just call him. If it's not Bart, I apologize, Bart. If it is, then there you go. But yeah, it's Peak, guys. It's literally just Peak around. It's good. It's a good deck. Hasn't changed too much. Zach Lesage won Players Cup 2 with it. And ever since then, it's been seeing a lot of play and a lot of success. So there you go. Definitely run Mewtwo's in Peak, or you're going to not have a good time. Okay. After that, we're going back to Green's Reshizard, and this is actually Daniel Altavilla, another phenomenal player, one of the best players in the game right now. He got 3rd in the tournament playing Green's Reshizard. Now, his top 4 match that I did watch, he got pretty unlucky. I was really expecting him to make it to finals. I think he was playing Rapid Strike Urshifu, did get the loss there. It was kind of a tough matchup for him, but overall, I think that this is really good. Very similar list to the last one that we saw, except we are running a Tapu Fini in here. So Danny likes his Tapu Finis for sure. But other than that, the deck is super consistent. It's very much what we saw in the last Reshizard list, maybe just a little bit different. But Green's Reshizard, man, yeah. I mean, I have to make a video on this thing soon, even though I have no idea how to play Green's decks or Welder decks in general. Just not decks that I ever play. But you know what? It's super good, super cool. And big shout out to Danny. I'm not going to spend too much time on the list just because, of course, we did already take a look at one. This one's a little bit different. There's so many different cards in the list, I can't even point out the differences, to be 100% honest with you. But yeah, here it is. And absorb it, because you're probably going to see more Green's Reshizard. I mean, it's just super good. And for players that are skilled enough to play Green's decks, especially this one, I think that they're going to see a lot of success. I know Kant is phenomenal, and I know Danny's phenomenal. So 2 really high-level players getting high placements in this tournament with Green's Reshizard. So I think that for someone like me, it's probably not the best option. But for a lot of other players who are skilled, this could be a really, really good option, and I think it's a really good deck. So yeah, there you go. Big shout out to Danny. Love it, Danny. All right, next up, we're going to get into our last 2 decks. So we've got Stefan Ivanov and Joshua Southerland. These were the grand finals players, the players that made finals. But before we get into it, if you guys are interested in seeing the match, if you guys want to see how the grand finals played out, I do have the video posted up on the channel yesterday. It's almost at 2,000 views, so I really appreciate you guys clicking on that. But link for it will be down in the description below. It's also going to be up here in the top, or up there in the top right, if you guys want to click that. It was a great match. Absolutely one of the best matches I've seen in a long time. Stefan and Josh both played phenomenally, and of course, Stefan was running Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX. It did make finals for like the 3rd week in a row, and people who don't think Rapid Strike Urshifu is good, man, they just don't know what they're talking about, personally. That's what I think. But yeah, it's cool. Now, there's a couple things in here that are a little bit different than typical. We do not see a Phoebe in the list. Now, Phoebe would have been extremely good in the Luke Metal matchup if Stefan were to be running it, but he wasn't, so the matchup was a little bit tougher for him against Luke Metal. But we do have a Cheryl in here and a Yellgrunt, so those are kind of some things that we didn't see in the other lists. But other than that, it's the Scoop Up Net Jirachi version. We're running the 9 energies and running the dojos, 2 air balloons, and an escape rope on top of the 4 switches. We have the Mewtwo, we have the Mimikyu, we have the Jirachi Gx. No Giratina in the list, but Giratina is a little bit less common than these other, their techs in the deck. But 4 research, 4 boss, 3 Marnie, 3 boss, 3 Marnie, and then the Cheryl and Yellgrunt in here. 4 quick ball, 3 calm. Yeah, I mean it's Urshifu, man. It's sweet. I really like Urshifu, and I think that the Goon is really good as well. I think that the Dojo, the Goon, the Scoop Up Nets really gives that the potential to 1-hit KO E-turns as well as 2-hit KO most things in the format. I just think that Rapid Strike Urshifu is super consistent. We're gonna see it a lot more in finals. I think it's it's 1 and 2 in finals recently, so it lost to Mewtwo, lost to Luke Metal, but it did win finals as well. So we do have had an Urshifu that won the tournament. So I think that it's an extremely good pick. I think if you're trying to win these big tournaments, I think that Rapid Strike Urshifu, one of the best tournaments right now. We're seeing it see a lot of playing success in Players Cup 3 right now. So that's another thing to take a look at. But overall, I think that Stefan is definitely one of the best players in the game. And big shout out to Stefan for being from France, right? Literally, I think started the tournament at midnight and got finished at 10 a.m. So this dude was absolutely dedicated, and it just means a whole lot to me for players like him to kind of come out and compete, even though the time zones are really rough. And with 500 plus players in the tournament, it's hard to keep it short. So, there's not a whole much that we can really do about it. We've kind of outgrown the format or kind of the structure for these online tournaments. I mean, when you have 500 and something players on a Wednesday night for a tournament that's supposed to be just a single day tournament, it's tough. It's just really, really tough. But I'm not saying I don't want people to play. I really do appreciate you guys playing. It means a lot to me, but we're trying our best. But Stefan, I mean, phenomenal. I mean, again, you guys should go watch that Grand Finals match. He played literally, I think, perfectly, in my opinion. I think he literally played perfectly, so you guys should go check out that match. If you're interested to see this deck list, see it play, and see how a really high-level players play Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX, I definitely suggest you go check out that video. But, yeah, here it is. I like the Cheryl. I like the Yelgren. I think it's super, super cool. Yeah, man, I don't have too much else to say. I really don't. So big shout out to Stefan. And then, of course, the last deck here is Joshua Southerland. Now, we're not going to take a look at his list in this video. I will be doing a separate video with Josh. I'm going to try to contact him, see if he wants to do an interview. I am a personal friend of Josh. We've talked a lot in the past. He's a great player, great friend of mine. So if we can get him on for an interview, if the timing works out, and his schedule is aligned, then I would really like to do that. So we're going to do a separate video on Josh's list. We're going to do a separate thing covering Luke Metal. But again, if you guys want to go see Luke Metal win the tournament, if you guys are going to want to go see that match, the Grand Finals match has been posted, so definitely go check it out. But yeah, here it is. That's been it. Chill Series 28, 518 players. Ridiculous. Great turnout. Luke Metal did get the win this week, so it's back kind of high up on the threshold of decks to play. I think it's really good right now. And I think Josh is a phenomenal player. A stacked top 16. Absolutely stacked. Tons of amazing players. And again, thank you guys so much for playing. Congrats to everyone that made the top 16 deck lists. And again, thank you to everyone who's watching this video and plays in the Chill Series tournaments. It's the reason that we're able to do this every week and kind of remain functioning. You know what I mean? So the support's been fantastic. I'm going to get out of here, though. It's been 40 minutes of me talking. My voice hurts. I don't, you know what I mean? I don't know why I do these take so long. I don't know how to end videos either. So we're going to leave. We're going to get out of here. Goodbye. Have a good one. Okay, I'm leaving now.